The alarm screamed through every corner of Harmony's Rest. Red lights flashed on the walls. The soft music that always played in the trading halls went silent. Every screen on the station showed the same words in bright letters. CLASS-7 Predator Alert. Evacuate docking sector immediately. Park Tae-ho did not know any of this. He was too busy trying to keep his ship from falling apart. His small cargo vessel. The Quiet Dream had been hit by debris 3 hours ago. A chunk of rock from an old asteroid belt had torn through his hull like paper. The ship's computer had stopped working. Life support was failing. He had wrapped emergency tape around a dozen broken pipes. But the air was still getting thin. When he saw the lights of the space station ahead, he almost cried. He sent a distress signal. His voice was weak and tired. This is human vessel Quiet Dream. I am damaged. Requesting emergency dock. Please. I need help. The station did not answer for a long time. Then a cold voice came through his broken speaker. Human vessel, you are cleared for emergency dock 7. Do not exit your ship. Remain inside. Security teams will meet you. Tae-ho did not care about the strange warning. He just needed to land. He just needed air. The Quiet Dream crashed more than landed. It scraped against the dock floor and stopped with a terrible sound of breaking metal. Smoke poured from the engines. Tae-ho lay in his pilot's seat, breathing hard. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. His left arm would not move properly, but he was alive. He pushed himself up and stumbled toward the ship's door. When he opened it, he expected to see helpful workers, maybe doctors, maybe a kind face. Instead, he saw soldiers. Dozens of them. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that glowed with blue energy. They pointed these weapons at him. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets. None of them moved closer. They just stood there, 20 meters away, like he was a bomb that might explode. Tae-ho raised his good hand slowly. I'm hurt, he said. I'm not armed. I just need a doctor. None of the soldiers answered. On the station's command deck, Commander Hall watched through security cameras. He was a tall Velith, with gray skin and tired eyes. He had served on this station for 40 years. He had seen pirates, smugglers, and criminals of every kind. None of them scared him, but humans scared him. He had read the files. Every officer in the galaxy read the files. Humans were classified as extinction-class predators. They came from a death world called Earth, where everything tried to kill everything else. Humans had evolved to survive that hell. They could run for hours without stopping. They could heal from wounds that would kill other species. They could eat almost anything. They formed pack bonds with any creature, even dangerous ones. They kept predators as pets. They found violence entertaining. And worst of all, they never gave up. They would chase prey across entire continents. They would hunt enemies for years. They would rather die than surrender. The galaxy had learned to be very careful around humans. Do we have his file? Hall asked. A young officer pulled up the information. Park Tae-ho, age 34. Licensed cargo hauler. No criminal record. No military history. He transports food and medicine to outer colonies. Hall nodded slowly. That means nothing. Keep all weapons ready. No one goes near him until we have a containment cell prepared. Far below the command deck. In the deepest levels of the station, a small Velith girl was lost. Her name was Kira. She was 7 years old, or something close to that in Velith years. She had blue skin that glowed softly in the dark, and 4 thin arms that she used to climb through small spaces. Her eyes were large and golden. It's perfect for seeing in low light. She had been with her grandfather in the market when the alarm started. Everyone began running. Adults pushed and shoved. Kira had tried to hold her grandfather's hand, but the crowd was too strong. She was swept away, carried by the river of panicking bodies. By the time the crowd thinned, she was alone. She did not know where she was. The halls here were old and dirty. No one came to this part of the station. She was scared. But her grandfather had always told her that being scared was okay, as long as you kept moving. So she kept moving. She crawled through maintenance tunnels. She climbed over old pipes. She followed the sound of machines, hoping they would lead her somewhere familiar. Then she heard the crash. She found a metal grate in the floor of a tunnel. Through the grate, she could see the docking bay below. She saw the broken ship, still smoking. She saw the soldiers with their weapons, and she saw the creature stumble out of the ship. He was tall, much taller than any Velith. His skin was a strange pinkish color, and he had only 2 arms. Red liquid ran down his face. He was holding one of his arms like it was broken. He looked tired and weak and hurt. The soldiers did not help him. They just pointed their weapons at him. Kira did not understand. Why were they not helping? He was clearly hurt. He was clearly not dangerous. He could barely stand. She watched as the creature tried to walk toward the soldiers. He said something in a language she did not know. His voice was strange and deep. It vibrated in her chest. Then his legs gave out. He fell to the ground and did not move. The soldiers still did not help. They spoke into their radios. They waited for orders. Kira felt something hot rise in her chest. It was anger. She did not know this creature. She did not know if he was good or bad, but she knew that leaving someone hurt on the ground was wrong. Her grandfather had taught her that. She looked around the tunnel. She found an old access panel that was loose. She pulled it open with all 4 hands and squeezed through. The maintenance tunnel connected to a storage area near the dock. Kira climbed down quietly, hiding behind old cargo containers. The soldiers were on the other side of the bay, far away. They could not see her. She ran to the fallen creature. Up close, he was even stranger. His skin was covered in tiny hairs. His chest moved up and down slowly. He was still breathing. Kira reached out with one of her small hands and touched his arm. It was warm. Warmer than any Velith. His eyes opened suddenly. They were dark brown, almost black. They looked at her with confusion and fear. Kira should have run. Every story she had ever heard said that predators were dangerous, that they ate little children, that they could not be trusted. But this predator did not look like a monster. He looked like someone who needed help. She grabbed his hand with 2 of her arms. His fingers were much bigger than hers. "Come," she said in her own language, even though she knew he could not understand. "I will hide you," she pulled. He was heavy, but she was stubborn. Slowly, painfully, she dragged him across the floor toward the storage alcove. The soldiers never saw them above. In the command center, Commander Hall finally noticed something wrong. "Where's the human?" he demanded. The camera showed an empty spot where the human had fallen. The alarm changed tone. New words appeared on every screen. Human uncontained. Lethal force authorized. But in the dark corner of the storage alcove, a little girl with blue skin was pressing bandages to the wounds of a monster, and the monster was looking at her like she was an amazing thing he had ever seen. Elder Suvin was one of the most respected members of the Velith Council. He had lived for over 200 years. He had seen wars end and empires fall. He had spoken with leaders of 100 different species. Very few things could make him afraid. But right now, he was more afraid than he had ever been in his life. His granddaughter was missing. He stood in the emergency shelter with hundreds of other civilians, all of them waiting for the predator alert to end. He had searched every face in the crowd. He had called her name until his throat hurt. He had asked everyone he could find. No one had seen Kira. The last time he saw her, they were in the market. The alarm had started. People began to run. He had held her hand tightly, but the crowd was too strong. When he looked down, her hand was gone. He had tried to go back. The security officers would not let him. They pushed everyone toward the shelters. They said the predator was dangerous. They said no one could leave until the threat was contained. Suvin did not care about the threat. He only cared about his granddaughter. He pushed through the crowd toward a security officer. "My granddaughter is missing," he said. "She is 7 years old. Blue skin, golden eyes. She was wearing a white dress. Please, you have to help me find her." The officer looked at him with sympathy, but shook his head. I am sorry, Elder. No one can leave the shelter until the human is captured. It is too dangerous. She is a child. Suvin shouted. She is alone out there with that creature. The officer put a hand on his shoulder. We will find her. But you must stay here. If you go out there, you might get hurt. Then who will take care of her when she is found? Suvin wanted to argue. He wanted to push past the officer and run into the station. But he knew the officer was right. He was old. His legs were not strong anymore. He would only slow down the search. So he waited. And every second felt like a year. In the storage alcove, Kira worked quickly. She had found a medical kit on one of the shelves. It was old and dusty, meant for Velith bodies, not human ones. But she did not know what else to do. The creature called Tai-Ho was awake now. He sat against the wall watching her with those strange dark eyes. He did not move or try to stop her. He just watched Kira pull out bandages and press them against the cut on his head. The red liquid soaked through the white fabric. She did not know that humans called this liquid blood. She did not know that it carried oxygen through their bodies. She only knew that he was losing too much of it. Hold still, she said in Velith. You are hurt badly. Tai-Ho did not understand her words, but he understood her meaning. He stayed still. Kira found a small tube of healing gel. She did not know if it would work on humans, but she put it on his wounds anyway. The gel was cold and green. Tai-Ho hissed when it touched his skin, but he did not pull away. She wrapped his head with more bandages. She tried to look at his arm, but he gently pushed her hands away. He pointed at his shoulder and made a popping motion with his good hand. Kira tilted her head, confused. Tai-Ho took a deep breath. Then, with a quick movement, he slammed his shoulder against the wall. There was a horrible popping sound. He groaned in pain and closed his eyes. Kira jumped back, scared. Had he hurt himself more? But when Tai-Ho opened his eyes again, he was moving his arm. It was working now. He had fixed it himself. Kira stared at him with wonder. What kind of creature could fix their own broken body like that? Tai-Ho saw her staring. He gave her a small smile. It was a strange expression, lifting the corners of his mouth. Kira had never seen anything like it. Thank you, he said in his language. Kira did not know those words, but she understood the feeling behind them. He was grateful. He was thankful that she had helped him. Outside the alcove, they could hear boots marching. Soldiers were searching the docking area. Bright lights swept across the floor. Voices called out in harsh tones. Tai-Ho's smile faded. He looked at Kira with serious eyes. He pointed at the door of the alcove, then at her, then made a walking motion with his fingers. He wanted her to leave. He wanted her to go back to safety. Kira shook her head. She crossed all four of her arms and sat down firmly on the ground. No, she was not leaving. Tai-Ho sighed. He did not understand why this small alien child was helping him. He did not understand why she was not afraid. Every other alien he had ever met was terrified of humans. They crossed to the other side of the hallway when he walked past. They refused to sit near him in restaurants. They looked at him like he was a wild animal, but this child looked at him like he was just a person. He pointed at himself. Tai-Ho, he said slowly. Kira's large eyes blinked. She pointed at him. Tai-Ho. He nodded. She pointed at herself. Kira. He tried to repeat it. Kira. His voice was deep and rough, very different from her musical tone. She laughed. It was a bright, happy sound, like bells ringing. Tai-Ho found himself smiling again. For a moment, they forgot about the soldiers outside. They forgot about the danger. They were just two people learning each other's names. But the moment did not last. In the command center, Commander Hall was getting more and more angry. His soldiers had searched the entire docking area. They had found the human's blood on the floor. They had followed the trail to the storage sector. But somehow, the human had disappeared. He cannot have gone far, Hall said. He was badly injured. Someone must have helped him, sir, one of his officers said carefully. There is something else. We received a report from the civilian shelters. Elder Suvin says his granddaughter's missing. She was last seen in the docking sector before the evacuation. Hall felt his blood go cold. A child? There is a child out there with the human? It appears so, sir. He had seen reports of what humans did when they took hostages. They were relentless. They would use any advantage to survive. A child would be the perfect shield. Find them, he ordered. Find them now. But be careful. If he has the child, we cannot risk hurting her. The soldiers moved faster. More teams were called in. Thermal scanners were brought out. In the civilian shelter, Elder Suvin heard the new orders through a speaker on the wall. A child was missing in the docking sector. A child was possibly with the human. His heart stopped. He knew. He knew it was Kira. He pushed past the security officers. He ran through the doors of the shelter. No one stopped him this time. He was too fast, too desperate. He ran through the empty halls of the station, his old legs burning with effort. He did not know where he was going. He only knew that he had to find his granddaughter before the soldiers did, before something terrible happened in the storage alcove. Kira and Taiho sat in silence. They could hear the soldiers getting closer. The lights were brighter now. The voices were louder. Taiho looked at the small alien girl beside him. He had known her for less than an hour. He did not even speak her language. But she had saved his life. She had shown him his kindness when no one else would. He would not let anything happen to her. He slowly reached out and put his hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him with her golden eyes. He did not know how to say what he wanted to say, so he just nodded, slow and serious. A promise. A vow. I will protect you. Kira seemed to understand. She put one of her small hands on top of his, and they waited together for whatever would come. Next, Commander Hall stood in the security office, staring at the files on his screen. The human's face looked back at him. Dark eyes, dark hair, a thin scar on his chin. He looked tired. He looked ordinary. But Hall knew that ordinary-looking things could be the most dangerous. He scrolled through the report again. Park Taiho, born on Earth, in a place called Korea. His parents were farmers. He had studied engineering as a young man. He had worked on cargo ships for 15 years. He transported food and medicine to poor colonies that other traders refused to visit. Nothing in the report suggested danger. Nothing suggested violence or cruelty. But Hall had also read the other reports. The general ones about humans as a species. He had read about how humans used to hunt animals by chasing them until they collapsed from exhaustion. No other species in the galaxy did this. Most predators attacked quickly, with surprise. Humans just followed. Hour after hour. Day after day. Their prey would run and hide, thinking they had escaped. Then the humans would appear again. Always following. Never stopping. Until their prey was too tired to run anymore. They called it persistence hunting. Hall called it terrifying. He had read about human diseases. Their immune systems were so aggressive that they attacked their own bodies sometimes. Their fevers could reach temperatures that would kill most species. And yet humans survived these things. They got better and kept going. He had read about human history. Thousands of years of wars, conflicts, and violence. Humans had invented hundreds of ways to kill each other. And yet they also built beautiful things. Art, music, poetry. They formed deep bonds with each other and with other creatures. They kept animals in their homes as companions, even dangerous ones with sharp teeth and claws. Humans were contradictions wrapped in contradictions. They were capable of terrible cruelty and incredible kindness. There was no way to predict which side they would show. That was what made them so frightening. "Sir," an officer called out, "thermal scans are complete. We have found 2 heat signatures in Storage Sector 7. One small, one large." Hall stood up. "That is them. Move all teams to that location. I want a full perimeter. No one goes in until I give the order." He grabbed his weapon and headed for the door. This would end now. In the storage alcove, Taiho was teaching Kira human words. He pointed at his eyes. "Eyes," Kira repeated it carefully. Eyes. Her accent was strange, but she was learning fast. He pointed at his hand. 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 She held up one of her 4 hands. Then she pointed at her other 3 hands with a questioning look. Taiho laughed softly. The sound rumbled in his chest. Kira felt it vibrate through the floor. She had never heard anything like it before. It was warm and friendly, Hansi said, pointing at all 4 of hers. Many hands. Kira smiled. She liked this game. She pointed at her eyes. Eyes, she said in his language. Then she said the Velith word. Velar. Taiho repeated it. Velar. His pronunciation was rough, but Kira nodded with encouragement. She pointed at her hands. Seti. Seti. He looked at his own hands. Only to Seti for humans. Kira tilted her head. Was he sad about that? 2 hands seemed very few. How did humans carry things? How did they climb? How did they hold their children while also cooking food? She reached out and touched his hand with 2 of hers. His skin was so different from hers. Rough and warm and covered in tiny hairs. Her skin was smooth and cool and faintly glowing. Taiho looked at their hands together. Different. So very different. And yet somehow not so different at all. They both heard the footsteps at the same time. Many footsteps. Coming closer, Taiho gently moved Kira behind him. He stood up slowly, putting himself between her and the door. His body ached. His head was still bleeding under the bandages. His shoulder hurt from when he had fixed it, but he stood tall anyway. The footsteps stopped outside the alcove. A voice came through a speaker, translated into rough human language. Human, we know you are in there. We know you have the child. Release her and come out with your hands visible. If you do not comply, we will use force. Taiho closed his eyes. Of course they thought he had taken her. They thought she was his hostage. Why would they think anything else? He was a human. Humans were monsters. Monsters took hostages, he wanted to explain. He wanted to tell them that she had saved him, that she was the bravest, kindest creature he had ever met, that he would never hurt her, but they would not believe him. They would never believe a monster. He turned to look at Kira. She was pressed against the wall, her golden eyes wide with fear, but she was not looking at the door. She was looking at him. He knelt down so their faces were level. He pointed at the door, then at her, then made the walking motion again. He was asking her to go, to leave him, to save herself. This time, he hoped she would listen. Kira shook her head. She stepped forward and took his hand. No, she said in her language. And then, slowly, carefully, she said it in his. No. Taiho felt something strange in his chest. His eyes became wet. He did not know why. The voice came again. This is your final warning. Come out now, or we will breach. Taiho stood up. He held Kira's hand in his. He looked at the door. Then he did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He sat down. He sat down on the floor, crossed his legs, put both hands on his knees, open and empty. Then he looked at Kira and patted the ground beside him. She understood. She sat down next to him, copying his position. If the soldiers wanted to take him, they would have to do it while he was sitting peacefully with a child. They would have to see that he was not fighting, that he was not threatening, that he was just a tired, wounded man who had been saved by a little girl with 4 arms and a heart. Bigger than any galaxy, the soldiers could write whatever they wanted in their reports. They could call him a monster. They could say he was a threat. But they would know the truth. They would see it with their own eyes. Outside, Commander Hall received the report from his thermal scanner officer. Sir, the human is not moving. He appears to be sitting on the floor. The child is beside him. There is no sign of aggression. Hall frowned. This was not what he expected. Hostage situations were tense, dangerous. The hostage taker usually made demands, threatened violence, tried to negotiate escape. This human was just sitting. What is he doing? Hall muttered. Unknown, sir. But our scanners show he is still injured. Blood loss? is significant. If we wait, he may lose consciousness again. Hall considered this. A sleeping predator was easier to capture than an awake one. Perhaps waiting was the best strategy. But then, another voice came through his radio. An old voice, shaking with emotion. Commander Hall, this is Elder Suvan. I am outside the perimeter. That is my granddaughter in there. Please, do not hurt her. Please, let me speak to her. Hall sighed. This situation was becoming more complicated by the minute. Elder Suvan, please return to the shelters. We have the situation under control. I will not leave without my granddaughter. Hall looked at the thermal scanner. The large heat signature and the small heat signature, sitting side by side. Not moving. Not fighting. Just waiting. What kind of monster sat peacefully with a child? Maybe, Hall thought for the first time. He did not understand humans as well as he believed. He lowered his weapons slightly, and he waited to dot the door to the storage alcove opened slowly. Light flooded into the dark space. Shadows of soldiers stretched across the floor. Tejo did not move. He kept his hands on his knees, open and empty. Beside him, Kira did the same. Commander Hall was the first to step inside. His weapon was raised, but his finger was not on the trigger. Behind him came 6 soldiers, their armor heavy and their faces hidden. For a long moment, no one spoke. Hall looked at the scene before him. The human was sitting on the cold floor. His clothes were torn and stained with blood. Bandages covered his head, wrapped clumsily but with obvious care. He looked exhausted. He looked defeated. But he did not look like a monster. The child sat beside him. Her small body was tense, but not with fear. Her golden eyes watched the soldiers with something that looked almost like anger. She was not cowering behind the human. She was sitting next to him, equal, defiant. Human Hall said through his translator. Stand up slowly. Keep your hands where we can see them. Tejo took a deep breath. He started to rise, but before he could stand, Kira moved. She jumped to her feet and stepped in front of him. She spread all 4 of her arms wide, making herself as big as possible. Her glowing skin pulsed with emotion. No. She shouted in Velith, you will not hurt him. The soldiers froze. Their weapons stayed raised, but no one fired. No one moved. Hall stared at the child. She was so small, so fragile. One wrong move, and she could be hurt. But she stood there like a warrior, shielding the human with her own body. The child, Hall said carefully, please step away. The human is dangerous. We need to take him to a safe place. He is not dangerous. Kira shouted back. He is hurt. He was bleeding, and nobody helped him. You all just pointed your weapons and let him fall. I was the only one who helped. Her words hit Hall like a slap. He remembered watching the human collapse on the docking bay floor. He remembered ordering his soldiers to wait, to not approach, to keep their distance. He had told himself it was for safety. It was protocol. But a 7-year-old child had done what he was too afraid to do. Kira. A new voice came from behind the soldiers. Old and desperate, Elder Suvan pushed through the line of armored bodies. He was breathing hard. His face was wet with tears. When he saw his granddaughter, he nearly collapsed with relief. Kira, he said again, softer this time. Thank the stars. You are alive. Kira did not run to her grandfather. She stayed where she was, standing in front of Tejo. Grandfather, she said, tell them to put down their weapons. Tell them he is good. He will not hurt anyone. Svelvan looked at the human behind his granddaughter. Their eyes met. Tejo saw an old man, tired and scared, who loved his granddaughter more than anything in the universe. He saw the same fear that every parent feels when their child is in danger. Suvan saw a wounded creature, sitting peacefully on the floor, making no attempt to fight or flee. He saw someone who could have used his granddaughter as a shield, as protection, as a bargaining tool. But instead, the human had let Kira stand in front of him, protecting him. What kind of predator let itself be protected by a child? Why? Suvan asked. The translator turned his words into rough human sounds. Why did you not run? Why did you not fight? You could have escaped while we searched. Taiho spoke slowly, knowing the translator would carry his words. She saved my life. I am not going to let anyone frighten her. Not even me. Suvan blinked. He did not understand. Taiho continued. If I ran, the soldiers would have chased me. There might have been fighting. She might have been hurt. I could not let that happen. He paused. She is braver than anyone I have ever met. She saw a monster and she did not run. She helped. I do not understand why. But I will spend the rest of my life being grateful. Silence filled the room. Kira turned to look at Taiho. She did not understand most of his words, but she understood enough. She understood that he was talking about her. She understood that he was thankful. She smiled at him. Then she turned back to face the soldiers. He is mine, she said. Every Velith in the room went still. Those two words carried weight that Taiho could not understand. In Velith culture, when a child declared someone as mine, it was one of the most sacred bonds possible. It meant she had chosen him. It meant she claimed responsibility for him. It meant that any action against him was an action against her. It was a bond that could not be broken by law or force. Kira Suvan whispered, "Do you understand what you were saying?" "Yes, grandfather." Her voice was calm and certain. He was hurt and alone. Everyone else was afraid, but I was not afraid. I chose to help him. And now he is mine. Svavan closed his eyes. His granddaughter had just changed everything. Commander Hall lowered his weapon. One by one, his soldiers did the same. "Elder Suvan," Hall said quietly, "what do we do now?" "The protocols are clear. Humans are to be contained and removed from Velith space. But if the child has declared a bond..." Suvan opened his eyes. He looked at his granddaughter, standing proud and fierce in front of the wounded human. He looked at the human, who had stayed peaceful through everything, who had put a child's safety above his own survival. He had lived for 200 years. He had seen the worst of the galaxy. He had learned that fear was sometimes the only thing that kept people safe. But he had also learned that fear could blind people to the truth. The protocols were written by people who had never met a human, Suvan said slowly. They were written based on reports and rumors and stories. But I am looking at a human right now, and I do not see a monster. He stepped forward, past the soldiers, past his granddaughter. He stood in front of Taiho. Taiho looked up at the old Velith. He did not know what was happening. He did not know what the child had said, but he saw something change in the old man's eyes. Suva knelt down, so they were at the same level. He reached out one hand, palm up. Taiho hesitated. Then, slowly, he put his hand on top of the old man's. "My granddaughter has chosen you," Suvan said. The translator turned his words into sounds Taiho could understand. "In our culture, that means you are part of our family now. It means we are responsible for you, and you are responsible for us." Taiho felt tears in his eyes again. He did not try to hide them. "I do not understand," he said. "I am a human." "You are supposed to be afraid of me," Suvan smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. "My granddaughter is 7 years old," he said. "She looked at you and saw only a person who needed help. Perhaps the rest of us should learn from her." Kira ran to her grandfather and hugged him with all 4 arms. Then she turned and hugged Taiho too, and in that small, dark storage alcove, surrounded by soldiers with lowered weapons, a monster became a member of a family. The alert came too late. Kira had already chosen. The days after the standoff were strange and quiet. Taiho was not taken to a containment cell. Instead, he was given a small room in the medical wing of the station. Velith doctors came to treat his wounds, though they were nervous at first. They kept their distance. They spoke in short, careful sentences. But Taiho was patient. He did not complain. He did not demand anything. He just sat quietly and let them work. Kira visited him every day. She would burst through the door in the morning, all 4 arms full of things she wanted to show him. A flower from the station's garden. A picture she had drawn. A book written in Velith that she tried to read to him. Even though he could not understand the words, Taiho listened to everything. He smiled at her drawings. He smelled the flowers she brought. He tried to repeat the words she read, making her laugh with his terrible pronunciation. The medical staff watched these visits with confusion. They had never seen a human act like this. The report said humans were aggressive, territorial, dangerous. But this human played word games with a child. He let her braid his hair with clumsy fingers. He pretended to lose at simple card games just to see her smile. One of the younger doctors, a Velith named Gisu, finally gathered the courage to ask a question. "Why are you so gentle with her?" Gisu asked. "The reports say your species is violent, predatory. You are supposed to be dangerous." Taiho thought about the question for a long time before answering. "Humans are complicated," he said. "We have done terrible things in our history. Wars, violence, cruelty, all of those reports are true." Jisoo tensed, waiting for the threat. "But we have also done beautiful things," Taiho continued. "We have built cities and written songs. We have traveled to the stars. We have loved and sacrificed and hoped. We are not just one thing. No species is." He looked at Kira, who was busy drawing another picture in the corner. "Your people look at humans and see only the danger. You read the reports about our wars and our hunting and our violence, and you think that is all we are. But you do not read about our families, our friendships, our art. You do not see the whole picture." Jisoo was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "What do you see when you look at us?" Taiho smiled. "I see people. Different from me, but not so different that I cannot understand. You love your children. You protect your homes. You fear the unknown. These things are the same everywhere." From that day forward, Jisoo visited Taiho not just as a doctor, but as a friend. She brought him Velith food to try. She taught him more words in her language. She asked him questions about Earth, about humans, about everything. And Taiho answered honestly. He told her about his home in Korea, a small house near the mountains. He told her about his parents, who had grown old while he was traveling the stars. He told her about the loneliness of being a cargo hauler, spending months alone in the dark between worlds. "Do you not have a family?" Gaisu asked one day. Taiho shook his head. "No, I was always moving, always traveling. I never stayed in one place long enough to build a home." Gisu looked at Kira, who was now teaching Taiho how to fold paper into small animal shapes. "You have one now?" Gaisu said quietly. Taiho watched Kira's small hands folding the paper with care. He watched her golden eyes light up when the shape came together. He felt something warm spread through his chest.
"Yes,"
he said. "I think I do." Weeks passed. Taiho's wounds healed. His ship was repaired by the station's engineers, though it took much longer than expected. The damage was worse than anyone had thought. During this time, Elder Suvan met with the Velith Council many times. There were arguments, debates. Some council members wanted to follow protocol. They wanted to erase Taiho's memory of the station and send him away, never to return. But Suvan fought for something different. "This human saved nothing," one council member argued. "He was the one who needed saving. A child rescued him. That does not make him special." "That is exactly what makes him special," Suvan replied. "He allowed himself to be saved. He allowed himself to be vulnerable. He did not fight or threaten or demand. He trusted a child he had never met. And if the next human is different, if the next human is truly dangerous," Suvan nodded slowly, "then we will deal with that human differently. But we cannot judge all humans by the actions of a few. That is the same mistake they made about us long ago. They thought we were weak because we did not fight. They thought we were prey because we ran from conflict. And they were wrong." The council debated for many more hours. In the end, the vote was close. But Suvan's side won. When Taiho's ship was finally ready, he was called to the council chamber. He expected to be given orders to leave and never return. He expected a cold farewell. Instead, he found Suvan waiting for him with a small document in his hands. "Park Taiho," Suvan said formally. "The Velith Council has made a decision regarding your status. You are not being expelled from our space. You are not having your memory erased." Taiho held his breath, stead. We are offering you something that has never been given to a human before. Salvin held out the document. A permanent trade license for Veleth territory. You may come and go as you please. You may dock at any of our stations. You are welcome in our space. Taiho took the document with shaking hands. He read the words, translated into his language. His name was written at the top, followed by official seals and signatures. I do not understand, he said. Why? Suvin smiled. The official reason is that we have reassessed the threat classification of humans. You have shown us that humans are not simply predators. You are complex beings, capable of both violence and kindness. We have decided that treating all humans as monsters is unfair and unwise. Taiho nodded slowly. That made sense. But he felt like there was more. And the unofficial reason? He asked. Suvin's smile grew warmer. A child looked at a monster and saw only a person who needed help. She was brave when everyone else was afraid. She was kind when everyone else was hostile. And she was right. He put a hand on Taiho's shoulder. My granddaughter taught us something important that day. She taught us that fear is a choice, and so is kindness. We chose fear for too long. Now we are choosing something different. Taiho felt tears in his eyes for the third time since arriving on this station. He did not try to hide them. Thank you, he said. Thank you for giving me a chance. Thank my granddaughter, Suvin replied. She is the one who gave you a chance. We are just finally catching up. Years passed. Taiho's cargo route took him through Harmony's Rest regularly. Every few months he would dock at the station and spend a few days visiting old friends. He would have dinner with Elder Suvan. He would help Jisoo in the medical wing. He would trade stories with the workers in the docking bay. And always Kira would be waiting for him. She was not a little girl anymore. She had grown tall and strong, with 4 graceful arms and eyes that still glowed gold. She had studied xenobiology, learning about all the different species in the galaxy. She wanted to understand them all, not fear them. She stood at the dock as Taiho's ship landed. Other species moved away when they saw the human vessel approaching. They still flinched. They still whispered. Old fears were hard to break, but Kira did not flinch. She never had. When Taiho stepped off his ship, she waved with 2 of her hands. The other 2 held a basket of his favorite Veleth fruits. You are late, she said in perfect human language. She had been practicing for years. The route was long, Taiho replied in nearly perfect Veleth. He had been practicing too. They walked together through the station. People stared at them, the human and the Veleth, walking side by side like it was the most natural thing in the world, because for them, it was, I heard the council is thinking about opening more routes to human space, Kira said. They want to increase trade, maybe even cultural exchange. Taiho nodded. I heard that too. They asked me to help with the negotiations. Apparently I am a good example of a non-threatening human.